To those people that are searching and they're feeling frustrated, big man or big gal, you don't let him learn, bro. Don't try to think for 1 second that you deserve anything in life. But what I mean by that is, like, you think it's you're entitled to a spouse. No.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Marriage Stories. Any ideas what we're going to be talking about today?
Last time was families, isn't it? So I'm thinking something maybe a bit more spicy today.
Yeah, something scandalous.
No, that's a bit mad. Okay, so today's about in-laws. We're going to be talking about in-laws. So we already know it's about to get heated.
Go down.
Everyone's got their views. I think a lot of us disagree on certain things about in-laws as well.
Huh?
So, yeah.
Are you speaking for me or who are you speaking for?
That was a shot against you, I think.
Yeah.
In thy R.
We never had this conversation.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying it. I'm sure there's going to be some differences of opinion.
All right.
On this topic, inshallah ta'ala.
Some ikhtilafat.
Anything we want to talk, what you want to clear out, maybe some disclaimers before we get into the
Little
story.
caveat things. Nah, man. Let's get into it, bro. Ding, ding, ding. Let's do this thing. Come on.
Okay, inshallah ta'ala. Today's story is about a brother-in-law or, well, a sister who getting a bit uncomfortable because of her brother-in-law. So she says, in our first year of marriage, things were mostly going great. Alhamdulillah. However, the issue mainly lies with my husband's brother. He frequently visits our home, sometimes alone, and I don't feel comfortable with it. So far, what are we saying?
I was waiting for you to finish. I was about to explode, bro.
It's quite a long story, so I just
chop it up.
Yeah, because if we read out the entire story, we're gonna forget what happened first. That makes sense. At the end of the story, I'm gonna give a breakdown or a summary of the entire story, so we remember all the parts.
What's he doing
just now?
now?
What were we saying?
Like, what business do you have?
Oh, you're against
He's
the
a brother, man.
Yeah.
He's a brother, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, so what business do you have being in my yard? Let's say, for example, my yard, my missus is down her own. What business do you have?
As in, is he coming by himself? As in, when he
He's
says,
gone on his own. There's no excuse. What are you doing?
as in, he's not visiting his brother, he's visiting the sister.
They become bridges.
Allah, man. At the risk of stating the obvious, we know the hadith, isn't it? Obviously, Sahaba mentions, asking the question about family, what is it about, approaching, the male approaching the female, subhanAllah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that the brother-in-law is death, right? Death. And some of the ulama, Imam Nawawi mentions death in many regards, in regards to the fact that, what comes out of it is punishable by death. Right, or what is as bad as death? But in this regard, what is his? Yeah, that's the question. Like, why is he visiting and nobody's there apart from the woman?
What are your intentions?
And also another question: has she made this clear to her husband that she's uncomfortable? And also, is she present in the room when he's there, or is she segregating herself?
No, this is saying she's on her own. He's knocking at the door.
Oh, she's on her own, and the husband's not there.
Yeah, he's not there.
I don't think that's very clear from the story, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's very clear.
Don't worry, there's more.
He's approaching by himself, as in, like, he's not going with his family. Like, he's going. That is understandable. If he's visiting the home, and it's a part of what we call silatul rahim, like keeping the ties, very, very important. So, like, he obviously has business going there. So
Malik's making excuses for the brother.
Making an excuse, 100 excuses.
To continue on, she says, one time, my husband mentioned that his brother sometimes used the guest bathroom by our room, which made me feel uncomfortable. I expressed my concerns, suggesting he uses the bathroom on the first level instead. Another incident occurred when I encountered his brother unexpectedly while not wearing my hijab. My husband was upset and suggested I wait longer before coming downstairs to avoid such situations. So he basically blamed her for the incident.
Wait. That one you didn't explain properly. So he saw her without hijab?
Yeah, so her husband was like, be patient next time.
You still didn't explain it
So
properly.
she was in a different room whilst the brother was still there. She thought he had left and came downstairs.
Oh, okay. Cheers, mate.
No worries.
Additionally, they seem to blame me for his wife's reluctance to go to the masjid. So the brother-in-law is also married.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Despite my efforts to support her, they imply that her behavior has changed and it's because she doesn't attend with them anymore. There's also pressure for us to babysit their child. So it seems like there's a lot of ongoing issues from her perspective. We're not saying, are these valid issues? Are these whatnot? But these are the issues that she's saying, right? As it's happening, right? Furthermore, his brother's behavior in the kitchen, he shows a lot of interest in her belongings and cooking makes her feel uncomfortable. While I try to remain polite, I don't see the point in being
why is he in the
overly friendly with
kitchen?
him.
Why is he in the
Unless his
kitchen?
wife-
Why is he in the kitchen with his wife on his own? Why?
He's doing too much.
First,
Way too much.
he's in the kitchen, bruv. I was gonna say a mad thing there, so I'm not gonna say it. Innit? He's in the kitchen. He's in it.
So are you saying if the husband's there's no issue?
No, there is an issue.
What's the issue?
If the room, I don't care. Let's say, for example, I don't want to put myself in this scenario because I'm gonna lose my head in it. But there should be zero reason why you are in a room which is full walls with said wife. Zero.
As in privately, you're saying?
Privately.
Just
zero.
alone. Okay.
No, but these other things about like, oh, came down and this and that and then this. These are like, you can say, obviously they're important things. They accumulate, they become big things, but they should be said straight away to the husband. Like, I don't think, and then he should take it on himself to try and tell his brother to be a bit more careful, this and that. But it's not, I would say so far, these issues are definitely, you can sort them out. It's not a reason why you should stop the brother from coming and visiting his brother. These are all like part and parcel of life in a way. Sometimes things happen. For example, you see an aura of a brother or sister, whatever it is. Like, this is not, should be avoided as much as possible. It's, one of the maxims. اتقوا الله من استطاع. As much as you can, try to avoid these things. But these, part of life. Sometimes these things happen.
100%. And is it a malicious thing, or is he just
Exactly.
doesn't know? Maybe he just doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't have any bad intentions, right? So before we get into that, let me just summarize exactly what's happened here, right? So everyone's on the same page. So got a sister, got a husband. These two are married, right?
Yeah, husband and wife.
Husband and wife. And we've got another pair of husband and wife. This husband is the brother of that husband, right? He's coming into their home when the husband's not present, and sometimes alone, whatever have you.
That's completely wrong.
Yeah, stuff like that. So that's really what the
And
issue
he's
is.
using the guest bathroom in the room.
Yeah.
So
There's
basically
no
the ensuite, innit?
boundaries. There are no boundaries in this
ensuite.
relationship.
That's zero.
Yeah. This is the thing about, as much as possible, you try to give that privacy, and you shouldn't be able to listen into conversations, shouldn't be able to listen into anything. That's a part of what is. I remember, subhanallah, there was and this is an issue about one of the ulama was asked about how would you like it? Is it okay for me to have? So one of the scholars was asked about having multiple wives in different kind of rooms. He said try to separate as much as possible because you want privacy. You don't want to overhear different conversations. So as much as possible within what you can do, basically try to have that privacy.
Also, if she has made it very obvious that she's uncomfortable to her husband and he hasn't done anything, then he's the issue here. He hasn't got a backbone, essentially, because you can see your brother outside of his house. This is her comfort zone. This is where, like, her safe space, so to say. So she should be prioritized in this space. So if she's uncomfortable, then he can see his brother in a coffee shop or something, or at his brother's house or wherever.
100%.
So you mentioned something about a safe space, women having their safe space, their home is their safe space or private space, right? How important is a wife having private space?
That's the most important thing.
Very important, yeah, for her
That's the most
sanity,
important.
for her sanity, her well-being, and literally to let her hair down, basically.
Okay, so do you think? So I think everyone's in agreement here. It's important. Women need to have their private space. They need to have that safe space where they don't feel like they're getting jumped out of nowhere or there's no surprises, right? So we understand the need for that. Do you think husbands understand this need for their wives?
You know what? I'm going to mention something which is a little bit intimate, but so PG thing. But even when it comes to, for example, intimacy, these type of things, it's very important for the woman to feel relaxed with her husband, such that, like, you've got, for example, there's a lot of scenarios. I know brothers initially living together with family, they can't afford, London particularly, bro. Like, who here can really afford, it's difficult, man, subhanAllah. But let's just say you're living together. It's very important in that scenario to have even a lock, right? Some people don't even have a lock on their rooms. Big man, get a lock, yeah? Because even mentally, for her to kind of let her hair down and be relaxed and be, intimate, she has to have that. It's a mental
space,
but also like have the security in her mind that nobody's gonna jump in. Nobody's gonna be like, hey, something needs done in the kitchen or something needs done. No, like you've got that.
I'll be honest, that part where you just said living in with in-laws, I don't know how people do it.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into that. So wait. So before we jump into, because that one we don't want to open a can of worms or whatever have you. Everyone's got their own opinion on that. And I think we need to tread carefully when we speak about that topic as well.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Because there's a lot of factors, I would say, to it, and it's different from person to person, situations, circumstances, needs of the parents and stuff like that. So before we get into that,
can I just say on that one point, interesting thing from the law, like there's 5 maxims, isn't it, when it comes to fiqh. One of them is al-ada muhkama. When it comes to al-ada is the culture. So it's the culture becomes actually like a fard or something that is that we rule with. So for example, in a certain culture, for example, Khabib, he mentioned something quite interesting. He said, I'm not leaving my parents. I'm the youngest son, so it's upon me in my culture to live with my parents. So in that culture, it's a norm. Whereas in other cultures, it's like no, like we having separate and obviously the wife has the rights. There's no doubt about that. But then the
I don't want to get into that.
But we'll talk about that later.
Because we are going to get into it, inshallah ta'ala, and we're going to spend a good portion of time on it. But before that, I think something that kind of, whether you're living with in-laws or whether you're not living with in-laws, is that having that space.
100%.
Do husbands understand the need to give that to their wives? Or sometimes it just kind of, the boundaries, like we see in this story.
Yeah. I mean,
all over the place.
I can tell from my experience, I've had some brothers who I've coached in the past, and they're talking about they want to find a wife, but like the option of moving out isn't really a thing to them. And it's never been a thought in their mind to say, is their wife going to be comfortable with this? It's more like, oh, she has to put up with this. There's no other choice. And I think you need to, obviously, it's difficult, right? Because if you have, like, say your parents are either special needs or whatever it is, right?
Aged or
exactly.
No, but we don't want to get into like, that again goes back into living with in-laws. I'm talking about
this the space.
But if you're living with in-laws, you can still have a space, right? So I'm talking about that private space itself, because here in this topic, she's not living with her in-laws, but that space is still getting violated. Does that make sense? So regardless of living with in-laws or not, that space can get violated. Does that make sense? So how do husbands understand the need to give that to their wives?
There's a really interesting thing I came across in terms of psychology, right? In terms of trying to help somebody or coach somebody. There's a saying, I'm going to say it sounds a bit, booky, but the catharsis, meaning what, the healing actually occurs in the space that you give somebody rather than the solution. Similar to things in terms of relationships.
That's so powerful. Oh my God.
When I heard that, I was like...
that again, because
say that again.
Yeah, because when I heard that, I was like, rah, this is deep. So the catharsis, meaning the healing, it occurs not in the solution you give somebody, but the space you give them. So the same thing in terms of like, if your wife, I'm talking to brothers here, but similarly in terms of your husband as well, if they feel that they're heard, listened to, that is like half the struggle.
Sorry.
You know what I mean?
No, sorry. Sorry. Malik's looking at me, innit? But you know what? Because we feel it. I sense that connection right there. It's true. No, it's true.
I 100% agree.
It's true, man.
It just seems like something I hear a lot.
And as men, subhanAllah, what it is, and wallahi, this is for me first and foremost, bro. Like there's this beautiful video about the difference between men and women, and the woman, she's got, subhanAllah, she's saying like, you're not listening to me, and the man's like, there's a literal nail in your forehead. She's like, that's not the issue. You got to listen to me. And that's what it is that brothers, we'll rush into solutions like X, Y, Z. But subhanAllah, for us just to listen to the sister,
it's so difficult.
It is catharsis. That's all she's looking for, bro. It's like, listen to me and I feel all right about it, subhanAllah.
You see this part about listening to the person, Now, this feels like I'm about to get a bit of therapy myself. But genuinely, when you're listening to the person, like this whole thing about space, like how do you provide that space? Because listening isn't just you're saying something to me and I'm able to regurgitate that information. What is it really that you're doing?
Understanding the meaning behind the words that the person's saying, right? Like sometimes you can hear someone, you understand, okay, you said a bunch of different words.
Yeah.
I heard what you said, but you didn't understand, because understanding requires an action, right? What
so that's the part, action.
Yeah.
Empathy, bro.
Is lacking.
I think from a man's perspective, we're always like willing to jump to the solutions, find the solutions. as you mentioned, a woman just wants to be heard. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds cringy, but from a woman's perspective, that's what they want.
SubhanAllah, you know what the beautiful example that came to my mind is, I think Taha, we mentioned this off mic, innit? Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he would know when Aisha radiallahu anha is angry with him or not. Why? Taha, you mentioned why? Because he says, I swear by the Lord of Ibrahim.
When she used to, when she would know.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Prophet ﷺ, he would know when Aisha was upset with him or angry in a sense, because she would say, instead of saying, I swear by the Lord of Muhammad ﷺ, she would say, I swear by the Lord of Ibrahim.
Look at the subtleties, bruv. So how many of us can say that, oh, I know when my wife's angry because there's a certain subtle difference in wording?
Believe me, I know.
I mean, mashallah.
Easy to tell, man,
yeah.
honestly.
I'd say a lot of this subtlety, subhanAllah, like knowing, you know, there's a little micro expressions, a different, you know, tone, a different use of word. Like, this is real listening. This is what I believe is real listening. And like you said, unpicking what the words really mean. What are they trying to, what's behind it? What are the emotional drivers?
What should your relationship with your in-laws be like?
All right. I got some advice on this from my uncle, right? And it's, subhanAllah, it's like, this might be sounding controversial, but in a way, to be too pally, right? You stop.
Explain what that word means, please.
Meaning pally, as in like you are like, you know,
best friends,
banterous, this and that, too much kind of thing. This sounds a bit kind of, you know, political, family wise, but you're losing your status a little bit in terms of like being able to that respect. So having so in a sense, making it simple to my answer, making it a lot more simple. Mutual respect, love, adoration, all of that, but they're not your brethrens, like, you know what I'm saying. They're not your Codys and what we say in the road. Like, you know what I'm saying.
You know what? From my perspective. I can't even speak to my in-laws in I don't speak the same language as my in-laws.
Oh wow.
In a way, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's good. So I think what's more important from my perspective is your actions and also how your wife speaks about you to them. I think that's actually more important than how you communicate with them.
Very good point.
Obviously, I wanna get to the point where we can actually have a good conversation.
So you're both kind of
what's that?
What language is it?
It's like Moroccan, Arabic, and Amazigh.
Darija.
I can teach you.
So what you guys are basically, trust me, you cannot teach them. You cannot teach it. We don't understand that.
Nah, don't worry, I do.
Nah, you do.
He knows,
Trust
bro.
me,
Well, you got Amir on lock, bro.
Yeah, bro, don't worry. Egyptian, Moroccan,
No,
Algerian.
I'm saying Algerian Arabic is vastly different from Moroccan.
From Darija.
Darija. Even though it's kind of like similar dialect.
Yeah, I know.
Big difference.
But
Yeah, he's gonna mess me up, man. He's gonna teach me the wrong one.
Let's hear some.
No, it's fine. We'll do this.
Just say a simple line.
Mizyan.
Mizyan.
Ça va كل شيء
What does
مزيان.
that mean?
It means nice.
كي داير.
And how do you say that in Algerian?
مليحة.
Can you see the difference? Okay. But yeah, back to this, inshallah ta'ala. You both are basically saying don't be too close to your in-laws. You should never be too close to your in-laws.
100%.
There has to be a boundary of respect. There has to be.
Yeah.
It's almost like they don't know you too well enough where they can kind of like mock you or something like that. Or
I'm
like
thinking
make
twice
a mad
about
joke.
saying this openly because some people will take it the wrong way. They're going to start being like, you know, stiff upper lip, let me be formal. No, I don't mean that. I mean in terms of like, there's a difference between your brethrens and your in-laws. Like there's a certain respect that you would lose if you start going with them to the word that comes to mind.
When you
panic.
say in-laws, are you talking about specifically the
Father-in-law,
parents,
brother.
or are you talking about brother-in-law, for example, as well, or maybe sister-in-law with sister-in-law?
I would say all, like in terms of brother-in-laws, as well as it's something that I learned like through people with experience. Because for me, I'd be like, why can't I just be like brethrens with them? But no, like in a way, you have to maintain izzah, like in terms of your respect.
That's the right word.
Yeah, izzah. But
That's
how do
the
we
right
say
word.
that in terms
I
of?
think maybe that applies more. I think maybe sisters would say that applies more to brothers than it does to sisters, because some women they don't have any female siblings and they're just waiting to get married so they can have
the sister.
that sisterhood, right?
You're probably
that
right.
Sister-in-law, that closeness
You're
to.
probably right, bro.
And does it have any real harms in
I would say-
sister-in-laws being close? I don't think it's the same.
No, it's not the same. With men, it's like a little bit. You can say a little bit different. Yeah, the dynamic is a bit different, a little bit.
Though, I mean, there is a potential negative. It's the fact that obviously your in-laws, whether that be parents or siblings, are not going to be as forgiving if you show them like negative sort of things that you have. negative characteristics or like behavior or anything like that. So if you expose them to that, they're going to remember that, especially like, say, for example, if your wife or husband is telling them about that as well. So.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I see what you're saying. It shouldn't be to the point. So you can be close, but you shouldn't be to the point where now your in-laws know, okay, what's happening inside your house.
Yeah,
I want to put you on the spot.
Go on. Let's hear this.
On this exact same topic,
Okay.
what do you think is the right way? Should you be
terms
that
of-
close?
I think it's very case by case. I'll be honest with you. I think it varies from person to person, and it depends
cop-out
from
answer, man.
culture. No, I'll finish. I'll give you my thoughts, but I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer first, right?
Yeah.
I can only speak for myself. I can say for myself, this is what I believe, but this doesn't mean that this is going to apply to every single person. And I'm not going to say that. So with in-laws, it depends as well on in terms of religiosity as well. Does that make sense? So let's say, for example, you've got in-laws who they're not that practicing. Does that make sense? And because they're not that practicing, you being close to them, they can, al-maru ala dini khalile. You are upon the religion of your companion.
Khalil, though.
Of your companion.
You see that, the levels, the maratib, the levels of friendship, right at the top is Khalil.
Exactly.
So we're not saying be a Khalil, but, why not?
Be a friend. But Khalil, like being like a very close companion.
Let him land. The landing is
not, I agree, it's not very ideal in that situation. But let's say, for example, now you've got very practicing in-laws, they've got very good character and whatever have you. I don't really see an issue. I don't see an issue in that. Wallahu a'lam. I definitely think though with the parents, there can never be that, like you said, palliness. Is that a word? Palliness.
What do you mean? What parents?
Like your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, there has to be respect from both sides. Okay, if you get too close to your father-in-law, mother-in-law, you might end up disrespecting them without knowing.
Exactly.
You might say a joke or something like that, and they might be like,
I think you man helps me understand the wisdom behind it. It's that you start becoming so no boundaries. It's this is me.
I'll give you an example.
So I think
I'll give you an example. Just so the point lands.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of this. Right? They say the tongue and the teeth, they're the closest to each other, right? And because of how close they are, what happens? Sometimes you bite your tongue. Right? Sometimes you bite your tongue. Similarly with that, if you get too close to someone, you're going to end up biting them. Does that make sense? And when it's someone like a parent or a father-in-law, mother-in-law.
Am I the only one?
I just tried biting my tongue
right now.
I'm saying.
I'm thinking, it's cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the reality, man. That's the reality.
I bit my tongue for time, bro. He just...
You know, if you, for example, if you are really close friends, you can kind of resolve that in a sense, patch out. But with someone that's like got a permanent role in your life, father-in-law, mother-in-law, I don't think it's appropriate.
It's not worth it.
And it ruins the respect that they have for you as well.
You can't risk it for that biscuit, bro.
I think the two things that was said here that I can definitely take away myself, that I think is really important, and I think everyone should take away. Number one is the izzah.
What's izzah? I'll pluck it out any Arabic, Urdu, whatever you guys are speaking. I'm going to make sure the viewers
I need the
understand
actual
what we're
definition
saying.
because me trying to define it in English.
Honor. Izzah means honor. Yeah.
The first one's izzah, and the second one, I think you said it. No, actually it wasn't. But I think the main important one is izzah.
And disrespecting.
Yeah, so I always thought it was a given, but if it's not a given, then...
Yeah, it's not a given nowadays. Nowadays, you have to be very specific.
I don't get it. Like you're disrespecting and being rude and this and that.
But like I said,
if we're talking about father-in-law and like mother-in-law, they're basically like your parents in terms of age, in terms of everything.
Yeah.
So if you're disrespecting them, then you can do the exact same thing to your parents.
Yeah, no. But again, it's because of how close you are. I'll give you an example. Like with my son, if I'm playing with my son every single day, and I'm like, which is good, but there'll be times where I won't make the boundaries known. Does that make sense? I'll get too pally with him, as they say, and he's young. If I get too pally with him,
that's his new
end up slapping me in the face, or he'll end up saying something. Does that make sense? That is rude or disrespectful. So you can't get to that
level. That's the second word. Boundaries. Boundaries and izzah.
Boundaries.
Yeah. And that, by the way, this happens with friends as well. Yeah. Sometimes, like with someone that you just got to know, you just don't set any boundaries in the beginning of that friendship.
Yeah.
And they end up just disrespecting you. Right?
It's mad, man.
And especially with younger brothers, right? Let's say
Particularly those without social intelligence, they don't even realize that they'll be belling
especially
you at like
you got 18,
1 a.m. in the
brothers.
morning.
Yeah, if you've got 18, 19-year-old younger brothers or whatever have you, and you don't set boundaries with them,
Yeah,
they will end up disrespecting you.
that's it.
All right, cool.
I did want to talk about in-laws, so should we jump on in-laws or?
Can't be up to you.
Yeah. Okay. So cool.
Yeah,
so just in terms of in-laws, let's circle back to in-laws. What everyone kind of wanted to mention before we were almost jumping at each other's throats. What's the living situation with in-laws? What do you think?
The living situation.
Yeah, like living with your in-laws. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to. Whilst we're doing disclaimers, I'll do another disclaimer. This is my opinion, my own opinion, nobody else's opinion, and anything that I say is me.
Zawaj Cards does not hold the same view.
But genuinely,
Whatever he's about to say.
no, genuinely, I've got to respect anyone that can do it and do it well, because that takes guts, that takes a lot of boundaries, that takes a lot of wisdom to be able to do that and do it well, where you're keeping every party happy. I just couldn't do that.
I think it depends on a number of factors, right? But let's hear it from you guys.
Yeah, I think one thing that commonly, in terms of where I grew up, in terms of who I'm listening to, in terms of speakers and stuff like that, right? In terms of du'at, we're calling, they have a particular one view, which is like,
What is the du'at?
Du'at is those callers to Islam.
Speakers,
So, for example,
Islamic
Islamic
speakers,
speakers,
yeah.
right? All of them will tell you about the basic principle, which is the woman has the right to her own space, right? But the reality on the ground is a lot of my brothers that I've grown up with, went to whatever school with, whatever it is, a lot of them couldn't simply afford. And that's afford is one.
Yeah.
The other is like, Yahya mentioned in terms of looking after. There's a lot of reasons why you would be in in-laws. But what's interesting is, man, there was a podcast I was listening to, a sister's panel talking about the benefits of living with in-laws. And she mentioned how this idea of, well, I'm extrapolating a little bit, but to put it into context, how hyper-individualism has destroyed us. And we not only do we see it in the UK, but we see it, for example, I was in Saudi for quite a long time in terms of looking for opportunities there. And I was really trying to understand the culture. How has it changed? And one of the saddest things is that before, what the guide and the actual Saudi person from one of the Qaba'il, one of the tribes mentioned to me is like, bro, before, even if we had salt, we would go to our neighbors and be like, Ya Ammo, can I get some salt? Just to get that little bit of, blessings and mercy between each other. Now,
But you can't do that no more.
talabat,
Yeah.
the Uber of eats of the Middle East, you just get your things that you need from there. So why am I saying that? Is because when it comes to in-laws, and not only them, but an entire, they say it takes a village to raise a child. The notion that the nuclear family, just an untrained, inexperienced young couple can raise a child adequately, I think is false, right? It's very, very difficult to do. So maybe you can do so, you can try to learn, but your ultimate guide should be in-laws, your parents, people around you. That's a basic premise I would just want to mention as well. A lot of us have this flawed understanding that we can do this ourselves. No, you can't. But to say to live in in-laws, that's a step that I'm making. But I'm saying there's a lot of benefits for that. For example, your kids are looked after, yourself, you've got a certain experience behind you. To say the experience is perfect, no. Maybe they have a certain playbook, you might have a different one, but there's certain benefits as well. And I like to say that maybe for a lot of people, it's like a temporary thing to live with in-laws, and later on you move out when you can. But yeah, the asl is, yes, the woman has a right, but there are certain benefits to be living with in-laws, and there's certain practical aspects. Like, for example, parents are older. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, there's an indication from Allah Jalla Jalalu that you are with them when they are in old age.
With what you said, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
However, we do want to mention two things, right? The first is, it is her right, and if she does want
doubt.
to
100%.
have her own home, then it is her right to request that. But of course, like I said in the last episode, we're not robots. Does that make sense? We try our best to fulfill each other's rights, whatever have you, but within reason. Does that make sense? Within reason.
Yeah.
But the second thing is, can living with in-laws ever be successful if the husband doesn't do his job? Yani he's not actively striving. Number one, he's striving to get private their own home. That's number one. And also, within that time, he's not ensuring that his wife has that private space that we talked about, that safe space that he talks
He's
about. Maybe
got-
a lock
yeah.
in the room, maybe their own private bathroom, stuff like that.
Private kitchen potentially.
Yeah.
Essentially. I think,
Separate floors.
I think the expectations just need to be sort of set at the beginning, because I hear a lot of, should I mention the community? Or is it a bit...
Got what community?
Well, specific,
My community.
yeah, your
basically.
community, bro.
Yeah.
The South Asian community, a lot of the time, the wife moves in and she's not only sort of serving or obeying her husband, but she also has to, well, she doesn't have to, but she is obeying the mother-in-law and father-in-law, which
Oh,
she
that's
shouldn't
an
have to do
interesting.
that.
Are you talking about? Because this is a different one then. Because we were talking about, automatically, I assumed we were talking about the wife going to the husband's in-laws, but you're saying
No,
It can happen
no.
others.
If the wife moves in and then she's, say for example, she's cooking and all that, she's only really expected to cook for her husband, right?
you're saying from that angle.
Yeah, but then like a lot of the sort of in-laws would expect her to cook for the whole family.
Culturally,
I've heard of this many, many times.
I've heard that as well.
I used to write.
culturally.
I used to write advice for sisters before I realized that I shouldn't be doing that. But I've done about 50 of them, and this happened maybe 20% of the time, bro.
I don't think that's always an issue though. If there's an expectation that is set, for example, some they want to do that. Why not? Okay, it's because they've been raised like that, and some it's like nah, this is too much. I can't do it.
It's almost always
So-
negative, bro.
Yeah, it's just, you should stipulate that. Like I said, there were certain sisters I was talking to for marriage. They wanted to live with in-laws. They want to cook for in-laws. They find it very nice and something that they would love to do. It's from their nature.
They want the family feeling.
They want the family feeling because a lot of them, subhanAllah, that's what they grew up with. Like I said, urf, ada, we're talking about customs and its culture is very different. But like we're saying, technically to expect that, it's wrong.
So to wrap it up, you're basically saying, look, it can work. It does work. However, there's conditions.
And I would say...
And oftentimes, I don't believe it is the conditions are practiced. So
Yeah.
maybe definitely look at...
You should never ever, like the man, like you said a very important point. If you've said it from the outset, like, oh, it's only temporary, and big man, you've become relaxed now, bruv. You set the expectation that you're gonna have a new yard, and you're just relaxed, bruv. Like you need to step up, bruv. Like, subhanAllah, I think really when it comes to these issues, I really sometimes I look at brothers, I'm like, bruv, what are you doing, bruv? What are you doing, bruv? Like, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gifted you with a beautiful, mashallah ta'ala, family. You've got kids on the way, whatever it is. And you're just relaxed, bruv. I just need to slap this brother. It's like, get up, man. Subhanallah, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, bruv? Honestly, like, because I feel like
you're talking to me, bro.
Mashallah, akhi, no. Alhamdulillah, like, this brothers, wallahi, look, I say it out of love, wallahi, because in this, particularly in the UK, we've got so many like security nets. We've got, job seekers allowances and that. Akhi, your izzah's on the line if you're on job seekers, bro. Subhanallah. Sometimes we might have to, COVID times or whatever it is, but akhi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're a qawwam for a reason.
Yeah, you should be striving to
100.
work. You should be striving to
100. Sorry to be coming a bit passionate like that, but
yeah, it's funny you said
it
that
is
as
what it
well.
is.
When it comes to like, again, we don't want to get into the whole issue of being a man or whatever have you, but just to touch on that, like being a husband, whatever have you, definitely being a good husband is in one of the biggest things. Obviously, is in being kind to people, and also being resourceful, being that
100.
utility, and that's exactly what it comes down to: being useful. You have to be a useful person. Does that make sense? You have to be a useful person. And not just when it comes to work, when it comes to the house, when it comes to helping around, fixing things. Does that make sense? You have to
100,
be
man.
a useful and resourceful person.
Can I just Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam kana fi khidmati ahli. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was known to be in the service of the family as well.
Yeah.
So for us, when I know Zach, you were mentioning it generally, but for us to be like the kitchen isn't the place for the man. We have to
No, the brother
abide
didn't
by
mean
that.
it that way.
But generally speaking,
The
like
brother, innit?
Yeah.
the brother himself. But like generally, it's a beautiful thing to be in the service of your family and be helping out
Yeah,
sometimes.
100%.
But for that to be your priority on your what they call the prima facie duty, as it said, is no. Your prima facie duty is to provide and protect.
And that ends this episode. Allahumma barak, some nice contributions that we had, shared experiences, differences of opinion, and more. Allahumma barak. Let's get into the
Passionate, bro.
Zawaj Cards. Okay, this is
like a group of men.
so
Again, some more,
with the Zawaj Cards. With the Zawaj Cards, there's 146 conversation cards in each deck that open up important and relevant conversations before you get married to your potential spouse. Now, I just picked up a random card. I'm going to read it out. We're just going to go through quickly, inshallah ta'ala, maybe like 20, 30 seconds. Even though these cards can take very long when you're just using them as a conversation, prompt, but we just want to get initial thoughts, inshallah ta'ala. The card reads, what makes a person ungrateful?
I think mainly just initially they may not start off as ungrateful, but it's that sort of continued expectation. So for example, if you're a husband and you're constantly providing something which is maybe a luxury, not a necessity, and your wife gets used to it over and over and over, and then you take that away, like she's gonna start to sort of expect it, and then she's gonna become ungrateful in that sense.
Interesting. What about you, Malik?
Bro, subhanAllah, when you mention ungrateful, the hadith about, women, subhanAllah, come to mind. And that's not, wallahi, that's not the case of a lot of women, subhanAllah. They realize that I think it's a mindset, and it's almost like you're in a bubble. As Yahya was mentioning, you're in this bubble that you think you expect that this is my standard or whatever it is.
What's the hadith?
The hadith is that a lot of, the majority of, inhabitants of hellfire is essentially said to be women. Why? The ulama mentioned it's because of population. We're not shy. But there's obviously the ulama mentioned the women are in more numbers than men anyway. That's one thing. But this is also a stern warning to women, because the natural proclivity for a lot of women is to be ungrateful because of what they're getting as well, and not to value the what they're getting in terms of provision. Right? Because subhanAllah, one of those things is just to realize that Ya Rab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy upon us is azim, it's
interesting you said that though, that you mentioned that hadith, because of course the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we take it as it is said. Something I've seen interestingly today, which is quite sad, right, is that a lot of men are becoming ungrateful in their relationships.
In what sense?
100, bro. Yeah.
Like there's brothers, their wives are doing the most. Allahumma barik.
Like in the South
so
Asian.
much. They're doing they're going above and beyond. There's women that are going above and beyond for their husbands, and the husband is absolutely doing niche, absolutely nothing. And on top of that, he's complaining about his wife.
Allah understand.
If that's not ungrateful, I don't know what is. So that's another thing that was quite interesting from what
that's a good way to flip it, So let's say, for example,
do you know why though? Because people use this hadith. It's a true hadith, 100%, and it is a warning, and women should take heed of that. You know what? We can fall into being ungrateful. Let's fix up whatever have you. But for the men, don't think, relax yourself and be like, oh, that means I can't be ungrateful. No, you guys are ungrateful as well. Unfortunately, we are. That happens to us as well.
It's a proclivity, I think, and particularly, you know what? I call it the plugged-in paradox, right? But we're experiencing something. We're experiencing something that nobody in history has ever felt, bro. It's that you could be in a desert in Mauritania, but you have access to a lifestyle through your phone, which you think is, somehow subconsciously in your mind, it becomes the norm. Like you could be in we say in Urdu, pind, like a village, bro. Like, which is nothing.
What is a pind, bro?
A pind is like a village. Like them man are living, donkeys and that type of thing, yeah? We call it like, one of those beds, subhanAllah, which is just, like little ropes and that. But anyway, so imagine you're living in that lifestyle, bruv. All you need to do is open up your little TikTok thing or Instagram, and subhanAllah, you see men and women who are like, beyond, subhanAllah, beauty levels that you ever think of. When you see that, your mind starts thinking that's normal, bruv. Such that affects your gratefulness then. Then you see the guy who's probably an amazing match for you, be like, nah, bruv, man's looking for something on a different level. But yeah, I think the plugged-in paradox is a big issue.
I like that you said that, right? Because essentially what that is what makes a person ungrateful, from what you said, like implying it, right, is comparing yourself to someone else.
Is the thief of joy.
That's it. Comparison is the thief of joy. That's a beautiful quote. And wallahi, it's very true. It's very true. Like you said, someone could literally be in that village life, in a pind.
But you say it better than me, bro.
Come on, bro, man.
Come on, my guy, bro. Punjabi and that.
Yeah, you could be literally in a village, and you could be maybe the richest guy in your village. But you open up Instagram, and you're seeing
my man in Dubai and
you're thinking, I want to be like that.
Exactly.
And then you start becoming ungrateful for what Allah has given you.
Well, I understand.
What about you, Zach? What are you saying? What makes a person ungrateful?
I think not having shukr of Allah.
Subhanallah.
That's the main one.
Mm.
I think no, genuinely, that's all I'd say. Because if you are genuinely grateful for what Allah has given you, because Allah has given every single person, every single person on this planet, Allah has given something to. Whether it's a trial, whether it's a benefit. Wallah, I'm being serious. Whether it's a trial, whether it's a benefit, Allah has given you something. And if you have shukr of Allah, believe me, you can't be ungrateful.
It's very beautiful what you said. That
Allah,
for two reasons why
beautiful.
what you said was beautiful. The first is that being grateful is the cure for being ungrateful.
Yeah.
And number two, Allah mentions, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful to Allah, Allah is actually going to increase you. He's going to give you more of what you have.
Growth mindset, man.
So what is profound what you said, man. And sometimes we just have to remember, am I breathing? I know it sounds a bit, like nowadays I cringe and whatnot. No, it's not cringe.
You're ill right now. Right?
Yeah.
You're ill right now.
The only thing that I'm thinking about is I need to get healthy. I need to go back to
see?
But when I was healthy, I never did I think to myself, oh, thank Allah for my health.
SubhanAllah, bro. That's the thing. Until that's get taken away from us, then that's the only time we value it, bro. What if, SubhanAllah, we just sat and just try to, SubhanAllah, tafakkar, like just for a little while, sit down. They say, Ibn al-Qayyim, I think he mentions before you go to sleep, just sit down. Just try to think. Allah subhanahu, just, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you try to count the blessings that you've got, bruv, you can't count it. Why? Because saliva, bruv, when I say blessings, are you going to think about saliva? You're going to think about the fluid in your eyes? You're going to think about kada wa kada? No. You can't even list it, big man. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, SubhanAllah. I think for the viewers to take something away, inshallah ta'ala, from this episode is be grateful, inshallah ta'ala. Be grateful with what Allah has given you, and He will increase you in that. And
one thing, can I jump in? One point I want to say to those people that are searching and they're feeling frustrated, big man or big gal, let him learn, bro. Don't try to think for 1 second that you deserve anything in life. But what I mean by that is, like, you think it's you're entitled to a spouse. No. If you were to fill your cup with shukr and ni'mah, be like, be happy as you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you more than what you deserve already. Be in that mindset. Then you look for a spouse. Not only are you going to be grateful, and like Taha said, وَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises He's going to give you more. But you're going to be healthy. You're not going to be self-degrading. Why not me? Why haven't I got a spouse? Maybe sister, maybe it's in 5 years' time, or maybe it's tomorrow. However, you have to be grateful in whatever. It's Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal.
Yeah, man. I, honestly, just to end off with that point, wallahi, it's very profound that you said that. You have to understand, and from my experience as well, what I've seen is that the brothers and sisters who end up actually finding a spouse and end up getting married are the brothers who are looking passively. They're going on about their life. They're developing themselves. They're focusing on their ibadah. They're focusing on themselves. And guess what? They're the ones that get married. And guess who doesn't get married? The ones who are always, why me? Why am I not married yet? I've been waiting. I'm hitting this age or that age and I still haven't found. I'm giving up. I'm giving up. Don't give up. Don't go to the extremes. Don't give up.
Yeah.
But also don't complain. Does that make sense? Don't start trying to hastily get what you're
one hadith, man. I just want to mention it was changed my life, bro. It's like if when you put your whole energy is about seeking rizq, you put it in front of your eyes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the hadith, He will scatter your affair. And He won't even, subhanAllah, He will scatter your affair. But if you make Allah Jalla Jalaluhu wa taqaddas asma'u your goal in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather your affairs. What does that mean? As Taha was saying, you make your priority yourself, increase yourself, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you that rizq. Just have that belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't make it, a burden.
And we end the episode here, inshallah ta'ala. Catch us next week on the next episode of Marriage Stories.
Assalamu alaikum. Big guy.
That was a long episode. I think it was worth it. It was worth it. But we don't have much time, so let's try to drop to another 2 minutes. Let's try another. Are you man? Do you need a little bit of a break or?